let's talk Utah Jazz basketball on the Monty Show, because that's, I think, the biggest story in Utah sports this morning is that the Jazz are in Cleveland to take on Donnie and the Cavs. And if I just asked you simply, did the Utah Jazz win the Donovan Mitchell trade? You're going to say yes. Of course you're going to say yes, because when you look at what the Jazz got in that trade, they got a haul. So, of course, on paper, the Utah Jazz won that trade like a freight train through a hay bale. Like, it's not even close. But did they really win that trade? Is this team better off without Donovan Mitchell? If you take the draft picks, if you take Sexton and Markkanen, are the Utah Jazz better without Donovan Mitchell on the roster? And the answer is no, they're not. Donovan Mitchell is an MVP candidate who's having the season of his career. And you knew he was going to have this season before it started. So, Jake, are the Jazz better without Donovan Mitchell?
No, I mean, I don't think you can ever say they're better without Donovan Mitchell. I think Donovan Mitchell is a phenomenal talent. And I think that Donovan is special. And I think that you don't just replace those guys. You don't just find those guys. You don't just, put 3 or 4 guys out there and think that you're going to be better than what Don can provide. And I think that while I like where the Jazz are at, I didn't love trading Donovan Mitchell. I have to be honest. I'm not the guy who thinks that he was the biggest reason that team couldn't be successful. Were there criticisms? Yes. I didn't like the hero ball, the lack of defense, the lack of belief in his teammates. But I'm not going to sit here and say that Donovan Mitchell is a guy that you should be looking to trade, or someone that you shouldn't build around. To me, there was a reason you traded him. Clearly, him and Danny had a falling out, and clearly Don didn't want to be here at the end there. I think we all know that. So to me, did you win the trade? Yeah, on paper you won the trade, but how long is it going to take you to turn somebody like Agbaji into a regular NBA contributor? I don't know. How long is it going to take before Colin Sexton can play the 1 for you or play the 2 for you on a nightly basis and be reliable? I don't know.
Furthermore, what do you turn those 3 unprotected first-round picks into?
Yeah.
That's the bigger question.
So, when Don goes to the playoffs this year and wins the East in shocking fashion, what then will we say? Well, then we say, hey, they lost the Donovan Mitchell trade? Well, I don't know that that's fair to just jump to those conclusions, because on the Jazz end of it, it takes time.
Look, I'm telling you now that the Jazz, in my opinion, won the Donovan Mitchell trade. But let's not get overzealous and say they're better without Donovan Mitchell, because they're not. And I think when Donovan Mitchell comes back to the Vivint, I think that you are going to see that there's a lot more fan love for Donovan Mitchell than people make it out to be. And I think, I'm not going to say it was an overreaction to trade Donovan Mitchell. I still would love to understand why Danny made this trade.
Bonnie,
because he won't answer that question. Why did Danny Ainge trade Donovan Mitchell? And he continues to defer and push off, and frankly, people don't ask him that question anymore. But I'm curious, do we get the Donovan Mitchell interview when Don comes back? Because Don won't talk to the local media one-on-one. Will he take the time to do a national interview?
Well, Malika, was it Malika Andrews, I think, right?
Yes.
Malika Andrews, did a sit-down with Darius Garland. So you're telling me Don can't do a sit-down?
He has been hesitant to do that. And somebody needs to ask what happened. Why did you want to be traded from the Jazz? Not did you want to be traded, not did you ask for a trade. Hey, Don, why did you want to be traded from the Jazz? Because I think now, with all of the things he said since that trade, I think the only conclusion you can draw is that Donovan Mitchell wanted out of Salt Lake City.
Facts.
It's the only thing that you can believe at this point. So, Don, explain it. If he says no, well, I didn't really want out, well, then why are you saying, hey, I'm enjoying basketball again? So you did enjoy basketball in Salt Lake City and you didn't want out, right? All of these veil shots that he's taken at the Jazz, he clearly wanted out of Salt Lake City.
And it's not an accident he's taken those shots. It's not an accident.
No, I think they've been very deliberate, but why?
Yeah.
I think we deserve an answer as to why. We as I wish I could say Salt Lake City roundly supported Donovan Mitchell. It did not. We as a fan base did not support Donovan Mitchell 100%. We didn't. And I think we in hindsight at times treated Donovan Mitchell very poorly. I think we should have respected him more than we did.
Sorry if you're offended by that.
But I do believe he owes us an answer as to why he wanted out of Salt Lake City.
Yeah, and I think this is where I wish that people in the media would press a little more, because this is not a run-of-the-mill thing like, hey, why did Jared Butler not get developmental minutes? Like, this isn't some random, obscure, like, basketball operations topic or question. Like, this is Donovan Mitchell, the best player your franchise has seen from a talent perspective, in my opinion. Like, this is somebody that could have won you a championship and will definitely win you a championship on another team. Like, this is somebody that should have never been traded, should have never worn another uni, and now is having the time of his life in the land. So to me, it is frustrating, and it is also not surprising that the media outlets here are not pressing the Jazz on why this trade went down. And I think that Donovan Mitchell, while he's had to get used to the Cleveland media and the fact that the Cleveland media definitely does a better job than the Salt Lake media, and they're a little more hardcore, they'll press you a bit more. I think that Don doesn't want to answer that question, and I just don't understand it. I don't understand why Danny or Don or any of these guys don't want to talk about it, but because at the end of the day, they made their bed with this trade. Right? Like, Don wouldn't have been traded if he didn't want to be traded. If he wanted to be here, he would have been here. I firmly believe that. And I think that someone needs to come out and ask him, hey, like, why did you want to be traded? Like, that needs to be talked about. That needs to be aired out. And I think that Danny is too much of a salesman to ever give you a straight answer. And Donovan is just too scared that the media is going to twist his answer into some some different like headline or something. And so that's why he doesn't want to talk. And that's why I say all the media stuff that went down in Dallas and just the different happenings with the media while he was here, it doesn't surprise me he doesn't want to talk to those guys, with all due respect. But you can't tell me that Donovan Mitchell would not want to do a sit down with Malika at ESPN and talk about why Salt Lake didn't work out, why it was so difficult for you and Rudy to play together, right? Why is it that when Danny came in, it was a negative thing and not a positive thing for Donovan Mitchell? I want to know why, because Danny Ainge is one of the best executives in the league, and everyone knows that. That's not like an opinion of mine, right? Like, solely, like, that is a NBA-wide accepted opinion that Danny Ainge is one of the most prolific executives in the league. So if you're Donovan Mitchell, I would think you'd be excited about that. I would think that you'd be like, all right, so we're gonna have a bad year or two, but then we're gonna build. We're gonna start trekking towards a Western Conference Finals appearance. But he didn't want to do that. So I don't know, man. I think yeah, someone needs to ask him. But the question is, did the Jazz win the Donovan Mitchell trade? I don't know. Does Don make it to the NBA Finals this year? You didn't win the Donovan Mitchell trade. Right? If he wins the East this year, you lost the Donovan Mitchell trade. And I know that sucks, but that's what it is. Because like he said, you knew that Don was going to have this big year. You knew that Don was going to be, in the MVP conversation. He's not going to win the MVP, but he's in that group of guys that people are talking about because of his performance. So if you knew that season was on tap, why would you trade that guy? And that's why it needs to be asked, because drama overtook winning basketball games, and that can never happen.
Yeah, it's a tough road to hoe when you're talking about Donovan Mitchell leaving, being an MVP candidate. I have to think. Now, his numbers have always been better in the playoffs than they were in the regular season by a pretty wide margin. I want to say that he averages, like last year, didn't he average 36 points in the playoffs or something? His numbers are significantly higher. Yeah. He's a career 30 or 24 point a game guy. And he's averaging 32 one year, 36 the next year. Like, he's a guy that you can count on in the playoffs. And I think if the Cavs make a deep run to the playoffs, that's going to hurt Jazz fans, because he's already a better player this year than he was at any time with the Jazz.
Well, and I think Jazz fans were really salty about the whole thing. They were like, I remember having conversations on this show with Jazz listeners at that time who were saying that Don was just hero ball guy and we don't want Don here and Don is not going to be a winner. And it's like, dude, like, you know, with all due respect, like that's just not true. Like I think Don played hero ball while he was here because he didn't trust his teammates.
That's clear.
And I think that sentiment is a tough place to be as an alpha.
Well, look what happened last night with Detroit.
Yeah.
Who had the game-winning shot in his hands? Bojan Bogdanovic.
And what did he do with it?
Shot an air ball.
Again.
I mean, it is difficult, in my opinion, to trust your teammates when you see that repeatedly. I think Donovan Mitchell, though, this trade, the one thing it did do is it changed the way Donovan Mitchell looked at his NBA career. And I think that there's no way it couldn't have. I think when you look at the way that Donnie's playing basketball now, his assist numbers are up, his rebound numbers are up, his shooting numbers are ridiculous this year. Like, I mean, he just has, again, and I know we said it during the summer, but he's taken a huge leap forward, and he's damn near averaging 30 points a game.
Yeah, and everyone thought it was ridiculous when you were running that out there. Hey, he's going to average 30 this year. And I have to admit, I even had my doubts that he would be able to put 30 points a game on the stat sheet regularly. But he's doing that, and he's not only doing 30 a night. There are some nights where he's 36, 38. There's been 40 points.
29 points and 29 and a half points a game, 4 boards, 5 dimes, shooting 50% from the floor.
You see the efficiency, and again,
Good
that's
Lord.
come from the mid-range, as we were telling you guys over the summer. So to me, it's just like you knew that this guy was going to have a big year. It's impossible to know how big of a year someone's going to have. Is he going to average 30? Is he going to average 29? You don't know exactly what the numbers are going to play out to be, but I think we all had this understanding that Don worked his ass off this summer and got his body right and got his legs right, and now he's having a huge year. So to me, it's just it's frustrating that this trade had to happen because Don is a championship player. I just don't have doubts about that. And the more time goes on, the more you start to understand Rudy Gobert is a rather average NBA player overall, right? We're seeing that play out in Minnesota. We're seeing Bogdanovic continue to airball three-pointers with the game on the line. We're seeing Mike Conley continue to be Mr. I'm going to miss games, right? Whether that's because of load management or injuries or whatever, right? He's still that guy. You know who Mike Conley is. We're like, all these guys are the same is my point, right? JC's the same guy. Mike's the same guy. Rudy's the same guy. Bogey's the same guy. Hell, Joe Ingles. Will he be a better version of himself? Because typical guys coming off an ACL.
He's debuting tonight, by the way. Joe Ingles makes his debut for Milwaukee tonight.
So, like, maybe Joe Ingles is an even better shooter than he was. But my point is across the board, most of these guys, with an exception here or there, are the same guy. And Donnie is this guy who's taken this huge step forward.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
agree
like,
with that.
dude, like, why would you trade somebody that you know is going to take this big step forward? And the reason for that is there was drama. There was some sort of falling out, which brings us right back to the point of this needs to be uncovered.
Yeah, I don't know. BB says, we know Donovan asked for a trade. You do? What do you mean he asked for a trade?
How's that?
What do you mean you know he asked for a trade? I don't
But
think...
like, I think that's what he need. That's someone we need an answer from him. Hey, so the questions I would ask if I was Malika and I was doing a sit down with Donnie, I would ask, number one, hey, what did you think of Danny Ainge coming into the organization? What were your thoughts on that? Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, did you ask for a trade? Like that, you have to ask that question because with all due respect to BB, we don't know if he asked for a trade.
Yeah, BB, I don't know what you're looking at. He says, but Don did not make a team great. I watch guys that are superstars, and Don does not feel like that.
Yeah, well, you're not watching Cavs basketball.
I don't
this
know
year
what
then,
you're
dude.
talking about.
With all due respect.
I mean, he is absolutely dominating. He's shooting 42% from three.
He is the reason they are winning more games.
What are you looking at?
Yeah, dude.
I have no idea what you're looking at. And BB also says Donovan is an amazing regular season guy that in the playoffs does not win you games. Do you know Donovan Mitchell's statistics in the playoffs? And by the way, I will look them up just to make sure.
But I think that the comment, like, you know, stats are important and we should look at his stats.
In the no. specifically in basketball, you either do better in the playoffs than you do in the regular season, or you are a flatliner. You're just a guy that's there. Donovan Mitchell averages 28.3 points, 5 rebounds, and 4.5 assists in 39 playoff games in his career. And specifically last year, averaged 25.5 points. 2021, 32 points. 2019, 2020, 36 points. Like, I don't know how you can say he doesn't make you better in the playoffs. The issue is, and this is where this conversation comes down to.
That's where the rubber meets the road.
If we're going to leave, okay, we'll throw stats out. Who did the Clippers attack in the playoffs? Who did the Mavericks attack in the playoffs? Because it wasn't Donovan Mitchell. It was Rudy Gobert. They played him off the floor. And you're blaming Donovan Mitchell for the Jazz losing in the playoffs. That's crazy to me. That's absolutely crazy to me. All right, Kurt Myers, good morning to you. First one in, by the way. He says, BYU has a new running quarterback. He's not your new quarterback. We'll talk about that coming up. Soul J, with all due respect, if that's your new quarterback, you're not going to win many games. I am not, based on what I saw in the New Mexico Bowl, I am not at all excited. MY Monty fan says, happy Monday, boys. Let's smash that like button. Same way you would your favorite Papa Murphy's pizza. Exactly.
Yeah,
By
dude.
the way,
Yep.
By the way, you guys crushed the curve over the weekend.
I like that. Crush the curve.
Yeah,
we should token that.
We are at 86.96 with how many days left? 12 days left.
Right.
Right. So we need 304 new subscribers by the end of December. And really, it's up to January 1st because the first business day of the year is January 2nd, and technically it's January 3rd because January 2nd is a federal day. Well, we'll be on the air Monday the 2nd. So if we call it, right, what is that, 11, 12, let's call it 13 days. That's 23 subs. We were at 34 subs needed. That's how many subscribers we got on the channel.
Listen to me. Do not pull a Patriots with this sub thing, okay? Don't lateral.
Why?
Don't turn it over. Don't come up short. Don't throw the opportunity away, okay? All we need is 23 a day. Run it into the end zone. Do your job. Hit the like button, and we're taking you to a Jazz game. We're so close here.
Okay. 18 likes so far this morning. So if you have a moment, please do go ahead and smash the like button. Let's see. Oscar says your best player cannot be 6'1" regardless. Hope we can develop the next Don at 6'8", 6'9". I don't think size has anything to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have Hall of Famers who Steve Nash wasn't 6'10", right? John Stockton wasn't 6'10", right? Like, not everybody's 6'10". Kyrie Irving's not 6'10", and he's, in my opinion, a Hall of Famer, and I don't think anyone disagrees with that. So, like, it's not about height. It's about how you play the game. And Don's shortcomings as a Utah Jazz man were that he didn't have a mid-range game and he was 3 or right up at the bucket. That's what his problem was. And by the way, those stats, I'd point out last year's stats were on a bum ankle in the playoffs. Like, I hope people don't forget that, you know? Like, he was playing on one leg.
And he wasn't a mid-range player. And what is he now? He's a dominant mid-range player. So I don't think his size... has anything to do with it. I really don't.
I think that people, generally speaking, painting with a big brush, don't want to say that Donovan Mitchell wasn't the core reason this team struggled. I don't think people want to say that. I think people want to die on the hill of Rudy's a scapegoat and Rudy was the best player the Jazz had.
Why is Rudy so much more liked compared to Donovan Mitchell when Rudy was so much more of a problem in the locker room? Largely the chemistry issues that this team had last year and really the last 3 years. I mean, a lot of that was smoothed over in previous years because they were achieving beyond what they thought they would. The last 2 years, the chemistry issues became a problem. I think, one, the COVID microphone thing was a bigger problem than anybody let on. I've been told that repeatedly. And two, I think last year people just got burned out on Rudy bitching and moaning constantly. Yeah. Like Rudy Gobert is that guy who thinks he's the best player on the team, and he routinely complains and obsessively complains.
Right.
And yet here we go where he's gone to a new team and they won't give him the basketball. That's already a talking point in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
That you cannot give him the basketball.
What has it been? 2 months? 3 months?
And you can't give him the ball. So I don't know how else to say it than it confuses me that Jazz fans blame Donovan Mitchell far more than they do Rudy. And I don't understand it. Rudy gets almost a free pass for being a massive pain in the ass in the locker room.
Yeah.
He just gets a free pass for it, and I don't understand it.
Yep.
Like his complaining about not being part of the offense, his complaining about no accountability, and then when players said to him, hey, you got to stop complaining to the officials, it's hurting the team, he told them, no, that's not true. Like, just wouldn't take the feedback. And what did he do? Kept complaining. And then in the playoffs, when he got played off the floor, did Rudy do media sessions? No, he didn't. Did Rudy want to talk about that? No, he didn't. Rudy Gobert was a significant locker room problem, but everybody blames Donovan Mitchell.
You're talking about a guy who sat out the biggest game of the year last year.
Yeah, he sat out in Dallas.
Like this isn't even a conversation. And this is why I've always said, hey, Jazz Nation loves an underdog. Loves a guy that's not quite good enough to get the job done, but works his ass off and is a defensive guy. And that's got to change. Jazz Nation needs to start prioritizing the offensive juggernaut who maybe is a little on the selfish side, but also is giving you 35 a night and carrying your team.
Yep.
Like, that needs to change.
NY Monty fan making life difficult. Jimmy Butler or Don right now? Pick
Jimmy
one.
Butler. Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
He's a killer in the playoffs. Like, he just is. He's that alpha male. That's the one thing we haven't seen from Donovan Mitchell yet, is him just being an out-and-out alpha male that will do whatever it takes defensively, offensively, like just win the game. That we know about Jimmy Butler. In the playoffs, I'm probably taking Jimmy Butler. Overall, I would take Donovan Mitchell. He's younger. I think he's a more well-rounded player. But Jimmy's just got that it factor in the postseason that I think a lot of people would die to have, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't think we've seen that out of Don yet, by the way.
I think that Jimmy has a clutch gene for sure. I think Jimmy is a better defensive player than Donovan, although Donovan, and this is where I think we have a lot of, with all due respect, a lot of casuals in the chat right now about Donovan's game this year. Donovan's defensive game has taken huge steps forward.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't watch Cavs basketball, then you wouldn't have seen that. And that's okay. I get it. But I don't want to see in the chat, hey, like Don doesn't play defense or Don's not this great player, because he has taken those steps forward. He has developed. And that's the crux of our conversation today about, hey, did you win this trade or not? Because you can't tell me that, Danny Ainge and Jay-Z, Justin Zanuck didn't see this season coming. You can't tell me that when Danny, Ryan Smith, and Justin Zanuck were sitting in a room with Don, because I do believe that happened, you can't tell me that they didn't see a guy that was driven and was ready to go, but in the moment was frustrated. Like, you know why he was frustrated.
Yeah.
And to me, this front office, unfortunately for Danny Ainge, because I love the guy, unfortunately, Danny Ainge is 1 year too late. Like, if Danny Ainge had come in before last season, I think we're having a completely different conversation, dude. I think that this team is still together. I think you made a coaching change. You got rid of Rudy, and you're going out to win the Western Conference. That's what I think.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened.
Let's see. Scott Howard says, I was at Game 4 and Game 6 of his rookie year against OKC. There was an infatuation with Don, and he loved it here, according to things he said. That was a fun series.
Yeah.
I would agree. I think the conversation about critical race theory with Donovan Mitchell changed the way fans felt about him.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt.
Yep.
I think it made it easy to root against Don, which I don't understand. I just, Provo Cougar fan says, don't care why Donovan Mitchell dislikes Salt Lake City, Utah, or the Jazz. I live in Provo, and I also don't like Salt Lake City. If he didn't like it here and wanted to be traded, so be it. Okay.
Okay, how about this?
Wow, Provo Cougar fan just coming out.
If you're going to say something like that, I need some whys. Why don't you like
Yeah,
Salt
what
Lake?
is it about Salt? I love Salt Lake City. I live in South Jordan. I love Salt Lake City.
Yeah, like
I love it.
I need to understand, like, with all due respect, like, I know that Provo is its own little world down there, with all due respect, and I love Provo. I love BYU. I love all the connections and the folks down there. But the reality is, if you don't live in Salt Lake, you don't get this. Like, Salt Lake and Provo are two different places.
100%.
Like, they are two different worlds.
100%.
So when I see a comment like that, I'm really curious, because I know you're a Jazz fan, I'm sure on some level. Why are you so comfortable saying you don't care if he leaves? Like, I care. It's surprising to me.
Yep, and I also care that you live your best life, which is why you need to go to TryDayTrading.com/Monty. All of our Utah Jazz talk and NBA talk on this show presented by our good friends at TryDayTrading.com. Speaking of Provo, they're right there in Lehigh. Local company, great entrepreneurs that run that company. Ryan and the guys at TryDayTrading.com have built an empire, and they've done it by turning people who are frustrated and tired of collecting a paycheck working for somebody else into entrepreneurs, into business owners, into prolific day traders. And we say it all the time, and a lot of people ask me, hey man, can we really make $1,000 a day trading? Yes, you can. Absolutely you can. And it is not something that you need to take my word for. The proof is in the pudding, and if you look at the people who have gone through the Tri-Day trading program, they're no longer struggling to find that side hustle because they don't need a side hustle. They make really good money as a full-time day trader. Well, maybe you want to keep your job. Maybe you have a pension coming up. Whatever that might be for you, you can day trade on the side because every day there are people who day trade after going through the Tri-Day trading program and make hundreds of dollars a day as a part-time day trader. And Jake and I have talked about this on the show. There was a whole community at Yelp when we worked at Yelp that was day trading on the side. And when you look at that kind of group, those are people that are making hundreds of dollars a day, every day trading. And all you have to do to get there is go to TryDayTrading.com/Monty. Stop struggling to buy Christmas gifts. Stop struggling to pay off credit card debt. The one thing you cannot do in this current economic climate is carry debt. Make enough money to be debt-free. Make enough money to be independent by going to TryDayTrading.com/Monty. And all I'm asking you to do is watch the free webinar. Register and watch the free webinar at TryDayTrading.com/Monty, and then make a decision. But I'm telling you now, if you're not ready to change your life, and if you're not ready to make significant money, don't go to TryDayTrading.com/Monty. Because you won't be able to pass up the opportunity. It's fantastic. And again, I can't say enough about the people at Tri-Day Trading. They are fabulous. They are locally owned and operated here in Lehigh. Hook it up, TryDayTrading.com/Monty. If you're just tuning into the show this morning, talking about whether or not the Jazz won the Donovan Mitchell trade. And really, I guess the bigger question is, are the Jazz better without Donovan Mitchell? And there has been quite a bit of dissent on this, which is surprising. I am really surprised about that. BTS Dance Studio says Laurie equals good role player guy only. Totally agrees. A number 2.
Yeah.
He's a number 2. No doubt about that. Provo Cougar fan says about Salt Lake City, because he had said, I don't like Salt Lake City. Traffic, too many people, too hard to get there in the winter, difficult to cross town, too many crazy Ute fans.
Yeah. So, nicely, we just are in a different reality.
Yeah, I mean, I live in Daybreak, so I have to commute. My commute just to the 15 is a good commute. I don't have any trouble getting across town. Like Bangor Highway, 15, 215, 80, like there's a way to get everywhere.
Yeah. I do agree that Salt Lake has more of a big city feel than Provo. I mean, that's pretty straightforward.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that's any kind of hot take.
The reasons that we all love Utah County and Provo is because the family feel.
Yeah.
I would agree the population density being less, although that's changing now. Utah Lake, it just has a more laid back rural feel to it. But those of us that are big city folks that like things like going to Vivid Arena, watching Jazz games, going to the U to watch Utah games, like going out to eat. One of the things we're going to talk about is, do we still like going out to eat? Like, I love going out to eat. We went up to Ruth's Chris in Park City last night. Like, doing stuff like that is really enjoyable. I love living in a bigger city. That's why I like living in Salt Lake City.
But here's my question
that.
about this comment, though. Can you scroll back up and find the original one? It should just be up here a little bit. Okay, we have a lot of comments. Yeah.
We do have a lot of comments. Yes, go ahead.
So he says, don't care why Donovan Mitchell
dislikes Salt Lake City,
Yeah.
Utah, or the Jazz. I live in Provo, and I also don't like Salt Lake City. If he didn't like it here and wanted to be traded, so be it.
So you're saying that because Donovan Mitchell didn't like the traffic, that's why he wanted to leave? Is that? And I'm not even trying to mock you. I'm being serious. Like, are we really sitting here saying that because Donovan didn't like the traffic or the feel or the people, that's why he wanted to leave?
Yeah, I would disagree with that.
I just don't buy that. I think that
I think you're saying that you don't care why he wanted to be traded. If he didn't want to be here, don't be here. And I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that at all. You know, I think it's one of those things where
I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with that take. I feel like the Jazz aren't in a position to say, hey, if he doesn't want to be here, kick his ass out of here. You're not in a position. You're not that franchise. You're not the Lakers. You're not the Celtics. You're not the Bulls or the Knicks. You're not those teams. You don't have the luxury of running through 15 different all-star caliber players to find the one that works for you.
I would agree. Charles says, I'm associated with a professional basketball team. In fact, we just won the TBL National Championship. What is the TBL?
I don't know. Let me look it up.
Enjoyed the interview with the G League player the other day. Can tell you want poison out of your locker room. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. There is no doubt about that. Absolutely no doubt about that. BB says the real question is, does Don make others around him better? With him, did the Jazz win a title in the next 2 years? I think if Donovan Mitchell's on this team right now, and let's say, Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton are not, are they a better team now than they are with Donovan Mitchell? I don't know the answer to that. You probably have a different set of guys here because Danny would have made different trades at that point. And likely Bojan Bogdanovic is still here. So, yeah, I think you probably are a better team. I think you are a better team with Donovan Mitchell. But in the long run, I think you're a better team built this way.
Yeah.
I just don't agree with you don't have a superstar on this team. You don't have an alpha. That's a huge problem.
Yeah.
Kyle J says, I wish we got a chance to see Don perform and develop under Will Hardy. Oh,
yeah, well,
boy,
I think
that's a
that's
kick
the
in the
other
balls
side of
right
it.
there.
That's the other side of it, too. I appreciate that
Yeah.
comment. Like, I think the Quinn stuff is also a deep, deep thing with Jazz fans and with me, too. Like, I think I love Quinn Snyder. I loved the way he kind of went about basketball and the way they played. But I have to admit, at the end, it was pretty rough. Like, at the end, he was lacking. And that's
he had lost his drive.
Yeah.
I think he had his spirit broken here the last year.
Yeah.
And that's a really tough thing to recover from. NY Monty fan says, Joe Ingles is going to get some open looks in Milwaukee. Unfortunately, these trades were probably necessary for the evolution of both the Jazz and Don. Totally agree. Totally agree.
But in that comment, that's spot on. But my thing here, and I think even if you're someone who says, hey, get his ass out of here if he didn't want to be here, if you're that guy, like even for you, you have to wonder, hey, what happened between Danny and Don?
You have
what
to.
Was the fallout? What was the reason that this guy who did so much for our organization decided he didn't want to be here anymore, to the point where he allegedly or possibly or maybe asked for a trade? We don't know if he did, but maybe that happened. That's as far as I'm willing to go with that. That's my thing. Like, no matter what you think of Don and Rudy or Don and Quinn or Don or whoever, like, this guy's an all-star caliber player. This guy's better than Lauri Markkanen, right? With all due respect to Colin Sexton or Ochai Agbaji.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell is better than all of those guys.
I would agree with that.
So let's not sit here and be like, well, if he didn't want to be here, he can just go ahead and leave. You don't have that luxury, and that's what I'm saying. The Jazz have to get traction with the guys they have now.
Yep. Mike Maples, good morning to you, Maples. He said the last couple of years, Don has picked up freak injuries late in the year, hurting his last couple of playoff runs, hence why he was focused this summer on getting his body right. Yeah, that's true.
Spot on.
Yeah, I don't think he ever recovered from that ankle injury 2 years ago. I think.
Do you even lift?
The
Yeah.
medical staff, another conversation.
Well, then they got fired because of it.
Yeah.
I don't think he ever recovered from that injury. I really don't.
What you bet?
Now he has, obviously, but I don't think before that he did. Kyle J says, we're seeing Donovan continue to improve and evolve his game. Rudy is the same dude now that he was when he entered the league. That explains who the problem was. Well, I mean, listen, Rudy showed growth and development defensively. Offensively, you know, it is. I have a really good friend of mine in radio that works in Minneapolis, and we were talking the other day about Rudy Gobert. And he asked me, why did the Jazz not develop his game with his back to the basket? And frankly, I think, and what I told this friend of mine was, hey, Scott, I just think that it's because Rudy plays a lot of international basketball. I think Rudy is a guy that believes he can shoot, but he's never been able to prove that. Like, Rudy has never believed that he needed to add new things to his game.
Would you go as far as to say that Rudy's not coachable?
I would. I think Rudy's very arrogant. I think he is very confident, which is great, but he's very arrogant, which is not. He's not humble at all.
Which we saw play out with the COVID microphones, with, you know, the official thing in the locker room, with, you know, you guys all remember the conversation we had on the show when all the locker room stuff was happening and Conley and Clarkson went to Rudy.
Well, his demand of, and again, I think we are still the only ones who reported this, and it's fine. We're just the hacks on YouTube. But
right.
When he demanded last year, and I want to say it started in like January, February, of him demanding to have offensive sets run for him.
I want it.
And Quinn resisted that for at least 6 weeks. And then after the All-Star game, finally gave in, and they started running sets for him, and it did not end well. Like, when he tries to get his back to the basket and dribble the ball, when he put the ball on the floor, I don't remember the stat last year, but it was, I mean, almost 9 out of 10 times it was a turnover.
It
was a negative
we're
result.
Seeing that in T-Wolf land.
Yes,
we're seeing
same
that
thing.
still. So I think to Kyle's point, like, you know, it's unfair to say that Rudy hasn't developed, because he has developed. His defensive game, he is not the defensive player he is today without developing.
He is focused in his career, Rudy Gobert, on becoming an elite defensive player and an elite offensive rebounder. It's something that was mandatory when Quinn really turned the screws 2 years ago to shoot more threes. You'll remember philosophically Quinn changed and they wanted to start shooting a ton more
50 a
threes.
game.
And that's when Rudy really focused on becoming the best offensive rebounder in the NBA, which for a time he was. I don't know if he is still that. I mean, his rebound numbers are always good, but he's also 7'6", and you know, he's a massive human being.
You would expect on someone with his rebound numbers to be good.
Yeah, he's a 7-footer. You would expect him to be good, but he has never developed an offensive game. Never. Maple says Don was the best player in the trade, so win for Cleveland, but Rudy was the best player in his trade. He was not. It is unequivocal the Jazz won the Rudy Gobert trade. It is, because, I mean, you look at Walker Kessler, the upside of Walker Kessler, what you're going to get for Jared Vanderbilt in the trade.
But what's the difference, though? Like the crux of the difference is not Walker Kessler, right? Just so we're clear, the crux is that Rudy Gobert's upside potential does not outweigh what they got in the trade.
No,
whereas
it doesn't
Don's
outweigh $41 million a year and
that too.
23% of your salary cap.
Yeah. No,
That was
that's
the issue with
100%.
Rudy.
Yeah.
The guy who screwed Rudy was Dennis Lindsey.
Yeah.
It wasn't Danny Ainge or Ryan Smith. And again, go back. It's all on the channel. You can never hide it. The day he signed that contract, we told you he's going to be traded.
Yeah.
Because you cannot sign a guy to 23% of the salary cap who can't get his own bucket. Rudy Gobert needs somebody to miss a shot to get his best, highest use.
Yeah.
That's the reality of who Rudy Gobert is.
Which is a brutal existence if you think about it, because that means your team is losing. That means your team is losing a lot of the, like, again, remember what we've always said on the show. For Rudy to have a big night, the Jazz had to shoot less than 35% from three.
Yeah. Ahmad says, have to hop off due to work, but we'll watch later. Could we talk a little bit of Houston Rockets rebuild after Harden in Houston? Well, it's an interesting comparison.
It is.
It is an interesting comparison because you look at Harden and you look at Russ and you look at Chris Paul, all going through Houston and now leaving, that's not the same model that the Jazz are going to use. The Jazz are not going to draft with all of these picks that they have. Danny's going to trade, I would think, the majority of the picks that they have.
Yeah.
Because I maintain that once a new CBA comes in, draft picks are going to be worth far less. I think my guess is you are going to see guys coming to the league earlier and earlier and earlier. And I think Bronny could be that first guy. And we'll see what, hey, is he going to college? Then right behind him is Bryce James, who's probably going to be a better pro than Bronny.
Here's the deal. I'm the best there is.
We'll see, but there's so much talent in the pipeline right now. How many of those guys want to get paid right now?
Yeah.
And
are getting paid right now.
Well, but NIL and
yeah, dude.
And college and portals, and we'll see. I think the NBA draft is going to be worth less and less, in my opinion, because I think you're going to have guys taking different routes now, and it'll be interesting to see. That's all I'll say. It'll be interesting to see. BTS Dance says Cavs won big. Well, if they win a championship and Don wins an MVP, I think you could absolutely say that.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no doubt about that, in my mind anyway. Giggity says Rudy doesn't have the heart of a champion. He's soft and thinks he's better than he is. Rudy Gobert is soft. I think that's a great point.
I think that I agree with that comment. The one thing that I'll say, and we had this conversation Friday about the heart of guys when we were talking about John Collins. I'm not going to sit here and say that Rudy Gobert doesn't want to win or doesn't have the heart
certainly not.
to beat the opposition. Because I think, Rudy Gobert works his ass off. I don't discredit Rudy's work ethic at all. I think the guy works really hard. And when you put him on the floor, you're going to get 100% out of him. So to me, I don't disagree that the guy's not a championship player, but I do disagree with the idea that he doesn't have the heart of a champion. I think he wants to win as much as anybody, but I think that he's just not a winning basketball player.
Yep, the biggest stories in sports every day on this show presented by Quick Quack Car Wash. Man, it was so good to get through the wash on Saturday. Again, long line at Quick Quack because I think it's everybody's favorite car wash. I think we all recognize that. We were through in 5-6 minutes. It was so quick. I've been up to the mountains, quite literally Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We were up in Park City with all the snow. The car looks great. It was so cool the other day that I was sitting outside of Alta because as a man, I can't go into Alta with my wife. I believe it lowers your testosterone level the minute you walk inside of Alta, the huge makeup store.
Right.
But we were at Alta at Mountain View Village, and I was sitting outside waiting for her to come back out of the store, and this little kid walked up and knocked on my window. And he was talking to me about my car, and he's talking about how cool it is that he could see his reflection in the paint and my red seats, and the car looks great. It's because
the kid asked you told me the kid asked you, why do you have red seats?
Yeah. And I told him because I can. That's what I said, because it is enough. Real. When you're making that bread. Anyway, the point is, it was really cool, but that only happens because the car was clean. It looked beautiful. We vacuumed it. It looked great. It was just a great experience at Quick Quack Car Wash. And it's easy. It's really, really affordable. Man, I pay $21 a month to Quick Quack to get their best car wash as many times as I want in a month.
You're probably paying $4 a car wash.
Yeah, especially during and I say especially during the wintertime. I get my car washed 2-3 times a week in the summer anyway.
Well, and I think the consistency is what's impressive to me. I mean, obviously you guys know that Quick Quack's been on the show for a minute now, and I think that, it takes time to see if they can keep replicating the result, and they do.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is really the value proposition. You pay $21 a month. Even when the line is long, you're still cool with it because they're going to move you through. And the wash is good. It's good every single time.
Yeah, I agree. Quick Quack Car Wash brings you the biggest stories in sports. I think clearly the biggest story in sports is Austin Napierski surgery. Dude, what is happening?
Bro, what do we got going on here, man?
Are you okay, dude? You all right?
Yeah,
Hope you're good.
Yeah,
what's going on, dude? What are we getting sliced? By the way, Mrs. Monty goes back to the doctor today for her broken shoulder.
Right.
So that's going to be interesting. We'll have an update on that for you tomorrow. Interesting, Austin. I hope you're okay. Let us know what's up with that. Question, do NBA players have to pay different state income tax based on percentage of games played in different states? Yes. All professional athletes do. They pay personal income tax based on the percentage of their total compensation earned in that state. So it really just depends on, how much money, how many games did you play there? Obviously you play the bulk of your games in your home state, but if you are the Lakers, obviously you're going to pay personal income tax in California for all those games in California, but you also got to pay in, hey, they play a preseason game in Nevada, in Las Vegas, they play games in Dallas. Like, yeah, you gotta file taxes in every one of those. Charles M says, probably on a tax question, compare rolling stock taxation and taxation of airlines. Okay. Yeah, I'm not an accountant.
No, that's not the show.
This
Sorry,
is why
man.
we pay an
That's-
accountant.
yeah.
My Monty fan says the Rudy Gobert model for development is what you pray for in every rookie. It is. I don't disagree with that. You would love to see every rookie project forward is, Walker Kessler projects to be the best shot blocker in the NBA right now.
And again, it's not and this is where I think we really got to do, like, as sports fans and as people who really watch this game that we all love, we really got to be intentional and do a good job about defining Rudy. Like, Rudy, for the millionth time, is not a bad player. He's not. Like, the
He's not at all.
conversation isn't that Rudy Gobert sucks, but if we're talking about championships and winning at the highest level, like the elite company that we would love to see Donovan Mitchell or any Jazz man in, yeah, Rudy Gobert wasn't good enough, and neither was Donovan Mitchell. With all due respect, you weren't good enough when you had your opportunity in Utah. But that said, he's going to be good enough in Cleveland. I'm telling you, don't be surprised when this guy and that Cleveland team shocks the Celtics randomly.